Welcome to episode 176 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. Hi, I'm your host, Catherine Erdly. I'm also the founder of the Resilient Retail Club. The Resilient Retail Club is my membership group and mastermind for product businesses. Head over to resilientretailclub.com and find out more about both the club as well as my mastermind, which will be kicking off again in January. Today, I'm really delighted to be joined by Lindsay Schneider. She is the founder of the self-tanning brand Get Into the Limelight, and she shares her story, which is a really fascinating insight into building a brand, using influencer marketing, and bootstrapping the business, doubling its turnover year on year with no outside investment. Lindsay talks all about the challenges of being a founder and when to figure out what to hand off, how to avoid being a bottleneck for growth in the business, and also, of course, how to work with influencers most effectively so that you can take calculated risks. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdly. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing: breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch, and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you so much for joining me today. Do you want to start off by introducing yourself and your business?
Sure. My name is Lindsay Schneider. My business is Get Into the Limelight, which is a luxury line of sunless tanning products and accessories.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit more about your background. You've got quite an interesting background. When I was reading your backstory, you've been involved in a lot of different things. And I'd love to hear a bit more about that and then what made you decide to start your business.
Sure. So I went to college and studied Chinese international business and marketing. And when I graduated, I was hired to live and work in Dongguan, China. I was sourcing all different kinds of products like leather sofas for restoration hardware and stuffed animals for edible arrangements and trampolines for QVC, all different kinds of things. I was in and out of factories and I found there were a lot of really cool products that weren't making it to the States. So I just thought, why don't I buy a couple of these selfie lights? At the time, Kim Kardashian was just talking about the selfie. And I thought,
Mhm.
there's these cool selfie lights. They'll clip onto the back of your phone. I'll buy a couple hundred and see what happens. So I trademarked it, called it the Limelight, and I was selling out a product. So that's kind of how Get Into the Limelight was born.
And where were you selling it at that time? What year were we talking about?
So this was 2016. I was selling on Squarespace at the time, just on my own website. This
Yeah.
is before kind of Shopify really took over and became the number one e-commerce platform. So I was just selling it really on my website based on Squarespace.
Amazing. And which social media, and was it Instagram 2016?
Yes. So I started selling on Instagram. It was like, gosh, such a different time. It was like, you know, working with influencers was such a different time. Posting was so different. You do a lot of quotes and a lot of things that were just, I don't know. I think if I were to start my business now, it would be a lot more difficult to get to kind of where it
Mm.
was versus starting it in 2016.
So you started off with the selfie lights, and then
Yeah.
so you bought 200, they sold out, and so then you just kind of kept going from there.
So about 500, they sold out, bought another 500, they sold out. And I was following trends. So, I had this selfie light that, like I said, Kim Kardashian was just talking about the selfie. And then the next biggest trend was silicone makeup sponges. And they're these little tiny sponges people would use to like blend in their makeup. And I decided to infuse them with glitter. So it was just kind of the next thing. And I felt like I was kind of chasing trends, and the product I did after that was probably the biggest learning experience for me. So, I don't know if you want me to get into that now or
Yeah,
kind
yeah, sure, go for it.
of.
What happened?
So I was just finding like the next product, and what I found were these disposable phone chargers. And they'd come in a little pack. You'd like open up the pack, stick it into your phone, and it would be great if you were like at a music festival or somewhere where your phone was going to die and you couldn't plug it in.
Mhm.
Um, I thought it was such a good idea, and it ended up being such a flop. People don't want a disposable phone charger till they really need a disposable phone charger.
Right.
One, because it was disposable, it had like a limited shelf life. So if I didn't sell them in a certain amount of time, the product just went into the trash. And it just was really a learning experience. It was then when I took a look at the business and I said, I've got these three products that I've built. I've got this selfie light, these makeup sponges, and these phone chargers. They don't really go together at all. But and I was spending the time getting customers, and they weren't really
Mhm.
coming back to the store. It was really just, I didn't have like a niche. And
Mhm.
so I went back and I thought, what could I do that would have people coming back and was something that I was really passionate about that wasn't just trendy. And
Mhm.
for me, that was always self tanner. Like it was just my number one business, or my number one beauty thing. It was like some people love their mascara, some people love, their bronzer. For me, it was like I couldn't walk out the door without having self tanner on. So I thought,
Mhm.
why can't I take my product development experience, making sofas and making trampolines and make my own self tanner? And that's kind of where Get Into the Limelight shifted from the selfie like glow to this tanning glow.
Got
So I
it.
kept the name and just sort of transitioned into a different kind of glow.
So then what year was that when you launched the self tanner?
It was actually Black Friday of 2018.
Oh my goodness, 5 years.
Yep,
And
5 years.
so was it, I mean, because skincare is its sort of own product development cycle though, isn't it? It has all of these extra hoops that you have to jump through. Was that a learning curve, or were you by that point so entrenched in product development and sourcing that you were like, "No, I've got this."
It was definitely a different, like, category, that I hadn't really done before, but my manufacturer for my self-tanner is stateside, and
Mhm.
just a wealth of knowledge. Like, I feel like now I know so much, but when I was creating my self-tanner, it was like I just wanted to be a sponge and absorb as much of the product, like how it works and the different pieces of it, like how it all works. And so I could really create the best self-tanner. So it was a learning curve, but I just had a great team that really helped me to understand it, so that I could work with them to build the self-tanner that it is today.
And how many different iterations did you have to go through before you found the perfect one? Because I think I read that you'd said that it was like you had one self tanner that you loved, but you didn't like the smell, and then one that was great, but it was too sticky. And so, how many
Yeah.
times did you have to go through the process before you're like, right, this is it, this is the formulation?
So I've been using self tanner forever, and like I know what's out there. So like when talking about this one's too sticky or this one's too, like I knew what I didn't want. So
Mm,
working with the manufacturer, it was so easy to find what worked. And then it was really just a matter of kind of tweaking. I mean, maybe 2 rounds. The biggest thing for me is scent. It's like I don't want to sit on with something that smells so icky. So as soon as we
mhm.
nailed that, it was like the rest of it were just, it was just small tweaks.
And is that still the main formulation that you use now? Or yeah, that
Yeah.
is. So the
Yeah.
original is still the one 5 years later.
It works. It works, and I don't wanna mess with it. So, yeah, that's what I'm selling now. So we've got the dark and ultra dark version, which is the same formula, but just an increase of ingredients. And then we've got a 2-hour dark, which is the base of our dark, but again, an increase of ingredients, and a 2-hour ultra dark. So it's really the same formula and
Mhm.
just different kind of, it's like pulling levers, different types of, or different, what am I trying to say?
Like
Different
different speed.
amounts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
different amounts
Mhm.
of the same ingredients.
So you were originally chasing the trends with the selfie light, with the makeup sponge, and with the disposable charger, which was not, obviously didn't quite work out so well. And
Yeah.
then you switched to then stopped chasing the trends, but you really kind of honed in on that product. Did you then have to shift your whole mindset about how you were marketing to, that brand building, I suppose? Before it wasn't so much about building the brand, it was about finding that trend product. But now all of
Yeah.
a sudden in 2018, you had to switch to actually, no, I'm creating a brand that stands for something.
Yeah, definitely. I think the core of the business since 2016 has always been about, making yourself feel good, look good and feel good. So like
Mhm.
at the core of the business, it was always the same, but I think
Mm,
there's just a different mindset of having more of like an actual like beauty product. Yeah, it was more of just more of a branding
mm,
endeavor versus before it was more of just like, here's a product and it works and you might want to buy it. This was more of like, I've got the best product and it works.
right.
And you want to buy it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So then from 2018 to now, obviously you've gone through, you've grown it then. So you've grown it
Yeah.
around this amazing self tanner. What has been some of the biggest challenges along the way?
Working with influencers has probably been the hardest thing. It's just really changed. So when I started in 2016, the influencer was with, hundreds of thousands of followers was charging $200 a post. Then it slowly
Mm,
went to $500 a post. And now that same influencer is charging $8,000 a post. And it's like
well,
trying to figure out how to spend wisely.
hmm,
And take calculated risks with advertising, I think has been the biggest challenge. Just making sure that, the influencers really love the product, that there's authenticity that shines through, that it's not just another sponsored post. And that's kind of what led me into doing some co-branded collaborations where influencers are putting their name on the product and really standing behind it. I think just kind of growing and adapting to that trend has been a challenge, and that's also what's made the business succeed, I think, to what it is.
so you've always worked with influencers really right from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always been a pivotal part of from when it was selfie lights all the way through to now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you so would you say that is the big, I know it's been the biggest challenge, but would you equally say it's the biggest thing that has propelled the business forward?
Definitely. I think yeah, absolutely. I think that, when people love a product that they are going to run out of and rebuy, I mean, that's what really has propelled the business forward is the
Mm,
rebuy. Like I always say, it's not getting it into somebody's hands the first time, it's having
mhm,
them rebuy the second time. So I put like a little mailer in with every order that says, "Hey, if you love it, here's a 15% off code that you can use on your next orders." If they're going to buy it once, that's great. If they're going to buy it twice, they're probably going to buy it a third and a fourth and a fifth time.
right. So you're getting into that kind of replenish purchase, which is huge in beauty. Do you know roughly what percentage of your customers are returning?
It's about 30%.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
And
So
actually wait, can I say one more thing?
yeah,
Sorry,
of
I was
course.
just thinking about this. You asked, like, what one of the challenges was with just having it be self-tanner. I think along with that growth, one of the other biggest things is I realized I couldn't do everything on my own. Like, I had shipped orders out of my house for years, and it was just getting to the
Mm,
point where, like, I'm carrying bags and bags and bags to the post office. Like, okay, I'm about to have a baby. Like, I can't do this anymore, and I
yeah.
think being able to kind of let go of some of that control, that was one of the other really big things that happened when the business turned into a self-tanning business.
Right, I see. So you were
Yeah.
able to step back and to hand off some pieces of it, which allowed it to then grow bigger.
Yeah, and I've done everything I can do until I couldn't do it anymore. Even like filling myself tanning drop bottles. So that's not a mousse, that's like a little 1 ounce drop bottle. I filled those by hand by myself for years. And finally, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Now I've outsourced that. So really, I think another piece that's really helped the business grow is just doing as much as I could until, I can't do it anymore. Then asking for the help and being accepting of that help too.
And how do you I feel like that's one of those things that I think you're absolutely right. You've nailed it in terms of in order for a business to grow, it has to get to that point where the founder is ready to hand off control. But almost like, how do you know when you're at that point? Because I think some people listening to this will be thinking, yeah, that I don't know if I'm at that point yet. How do you know when you're at that point? Like, when is the right
Oh,
point to
you
do it?
just know, you're like, "I can't do this anymore. I can't." I just knew. It was like, each of these things, I'm like, "I can't." It's kinda when it's overwhelming and it's not,
Mm,
I don't wanna say not fun because I do love packing orders, but when it's, like, overwhelming, it kinda
mm.
takes it's, like, becomes stressful, and at that point, I'm like, "Look, someone else is now doing my fulfillment. I can focus on the things I love and know it's taken care of." And even that was just a process. Like, I went through 3 different fulfillment centers before I found the one that,
Mhm.
you know I was with one that was too big, one that was too small, and now I kinda found my Goldilocks, and
Yeah,
it was a learning curve. It really
yeah.
was.
I think the fulfillment centers I work with people moving to fulfillment centers quite frequently, and I feel like it's one of those things that, yeah, it's often a bumpy road, right? It's
Totally.
like, but when you
Totally.
find the right partner, it can be transformational. So did you start?
Yes.
So in terms of handing off, then you started with fulfillment.
Mhm.
Was that the
Yep.
first thing that went? And also, I guess you're talking about actually filling the bottles yourself. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, and I actually stopped doing that last month. So, I had been doing that,
wow,
I introduced that product, I think it was 2020, and I've been doing that for 3 years by myself. So, that's a big thing too, but it was just like people are ordering it and they're reordering it, and, like, I can't keep filling these all by hand. One by one, I'm using, like, a ketchup pump almost and, like, filling a bottle,
yeah,
screwing it on, putting a label on, putting that in a bubble. It's like it's a lot of work,
yeah.
when I could be doing other things to grow the business.
Yeah, yeah. Product development or I mean, almost anything, right?
Right, exactly, exactly.
So in terms then of propelling the business forward, so it was learning when to let go,
Yep,
letting other people help, so asking for that help and getting the help. And did you do is that just would you say like an ongoing process as the business grows, you're kind of like, right, I'm gonna hand this piece off, I'm gonna hand that piece off, more
yeah.
than like a full sort of strategic forward thinking plan. It's more like, right, I just get to the point where I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Let's get some help.
And again, it's like that calculated risk. It's like, can I afford this too? Because it
Mm,
comes with an added cost. It's like looking at
mhm,
costs and kind of building in what makes sense. I was so nervous to do it. I was doing free shipping for years. And then when I moved to
mhm.
fulfillment, I started charging $5 for shipping. And I'm like, no one's going to buy my products. And the $5 off code that I've been giving now just basically makes it free shipping. And it didn't
Right.
impact my sales. It was like, you know, I was so, so scared to make a change, and it ended up being such a great thing for the business.
Yeah, for sure. And I think those are the places where it can really eat away at your profit margin if you're not careful. And then even if you're growing top line, it's not as much bottom line as you want to see.
Exactly, exactly.
So, going back to the influencer piece then, because
Yeah,
I'm curious to hear. So it's been a big learning curve and a big, I guess, like a real challenge to deal with the way that kind of marketplace, if you like, has shifted over the last seven
yeah.
years. But you obviously, it is a really core part of the way that you market the business. And
Mhm.
as you said, you mentioned you got these partnerships where you co-create the products or product ranges or like special accessories with particular influencers.
Yeah.
How do you mentioned you touched on this before because you talked about how you had to make sure that they actually really love the product. But is there
Mhm.
anything else, any advice that you'd give on sort of choosing influencer partnerships?
Sure, yeah. Oh my gosh, I feel like I could write, like, a chapter book on this, but, um, there's a couple things. One, when working with, like, reality TV stars, let's say, having someone with a strong female following, looking at their following and making sure it makes sense for the business, that's one big thing.
Mhm.
Um, Also, not just celebrities, but working with micro influencers and mid-size influencers who really love the product. I mean, some of my affiliates that are on commission only, they bring in more than the people I'm paying, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars
Mm.
to.
Mhm.
They're motivated and they love the product. So, affiliates and commission-based influencers, they're motivated and, sometimes they convert even better than someone with millions of followers. So I
Yeah.
think, it's just kind of having a diverse range, making sure it makes sense for the business again with like for me, it's that female following. Um, that's been really helpful, but also, like I just did a collab with Sammy Sweetheart from Jersey Shore.
Mhm.
She's been posting about and using my product for 4 years. So when I wanted to create a 2-hour version of the same product, she said, she's like, "I love your product. I don't know that I would have done this if I didn't love your product." And it's like, for that, it's so meaningful to have somebody behind the brand that genuinely loves the product. And same thing with Amanda Stanton, from The Bachelor. She struggles with acne and has acne prone skin. And so to have a self-tanning product that's fragrance free and non-comedogenic is a game changer for her. So really having
Mhm.
those influencers that stand behind the product, I think is such a yeah, it's a game changer.
So that's kind of the basis for building a relationship then. It has to be a genuine relationship.
For me, yes. I don't know how everyone else looks, but for me, it's like I want someone that I genuinely love, that I follow on Instagram, that I know what they stand for, that I know that they're a good, representation of the brand, and they genuinely love the products that they're creating with me.
Right. And so do you find then the most fruitful ones have been the ones where it is almost like you're following someone, you love the content, maybe you know they're a customer, or maybe you kind of get into that conversation about the product and it's like a mutual respect or enjoyment of each of working with each other rather than literally just right who's got the biggest following.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's someone who, like I always say, their heart has to be in it. Because if their heart's not in it and they're just doing it for the money, I think that the followers, the audience, like they see right through that. Um, and I think that, it also makes it so the influencer wants to work for the brand too. Like they want to promote it and they're excited about it. Like that's really important to me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's interesting what you were saying there about the affiliates because I've recently been working on my sort of trends for 20 retail trends for 2024. And in my head, what I'm seeing, a lot of the research that I'm reading about is suggesting more and more this almost like decentralization of people's ad spend. So whereas it may have been putting all of their money into like meta ads or TikTok ads or just social media advertising in general, instead of paying it directly to the platform, it's almost becoming like that creator economy is growing hugely, affiliate marketing is growing. So it's like that instead of it all going to the platform, it's decentralized and down into rewarding ultimately the people that really love the product. So like in the affiliates case, they're using product that they love, they're talking about it, and then their followers are buying through their affiliate links. So they're being rewarded. And presumably it works pretty well for you as a brand, right? Because
Totally.
you're paying the commission when the sale happens, not
Exactly,
before.
it's
Yeah.
low risk. That's
Yeah.
that's definitely one, benefit. I've also started, my top performing affiliates, I pay them a quarterly, like, sponsored post rate to post every
Mm,
quarter, and that's really helped too because they're, I get exclusivity. They're not, able to post about any other brand in the self-tanning category,
yeah.
and they're posting consistently. So they're like, they're getting the commission and they're getting a sponsored post rate each quarter. And I do that for my top performing like 6 or 7 affiliates.
And as presumably that's really low risk too, right? Because you know for a fact that they convert.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
But it takes time to get there, like to build those relationships, to ask them to post just for commission. I think most like if someone comes to me and says, are you taking like sponsored posts? I know that their heart isn't in it. And again, like that to me is like a deal breaker from the get go.
right.
It's a deal breaker. Your heart's not in it. You don't really care. You just want the money. So, no, sorry, we're not doing that right now. I want someone who's willing to show me they convert. And if they convert, I will pay you. I will pay you to
Right.
post about it consistently. So, I think, yeah, and it's taken me time to figure that out for sure. There have been many times where I've paid an influencer, they've posted $0 back,
Yeah.
0 orders, and it's just been kind of like a trial and error type thing. And even now, it's kind of a gamble. Someone could have a ton of followers and convert like nothing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a learning curve for sure.
Well, and I think it's really interesting because I quite often have this conversation with people about influencer marketing. Like when they're working on it, they may try a few people and then it maybe doesn't convert. But I really think when you talk to the people who do it extensively, like yourself or other brands that have used influencers predominantly used influencers to build their business, it is like that. It's like you're almost like trialing people out, right? You're trialing all of these different people that you think you start with the basis of like, this seems like this should be a good fit, but then you
Mm,
try it and then it's like some people convert, some people don't, and then over time you kind of get your like stable, right?
exactly.
Your kind of group of people that, okay, I know this person converts, but you kind of have to maybe kiss quite a few frogs along the way, right?
Totally, totally. And sometimes it's just luck, like, someone might post it and it goes totally viral, and,
Mm.
if they're posting consistently, maybe it doesn't get that same reach. So, there's that element of it too, that's like, just how many views is it gonna get? How does it work with the algorithm? Yeah, it's definitely a game of trial and error, kissing lots of frogs for sure.
But trying to do it hopefully in a way that is not too high risk, right? Because it's hard to kiss too many frogs when it's costing you a lot of money to do so.
I have so many spreadsheets of just looking at my ad spend, figuring out how I want to do it, differently the next year. Every year I say, how am I going to do this again next year? Like, how am I going to get the business to where it is? It has doubled every year. And I,
Wow.
I, I still don't know how I do it, but if I had to say why, I would think it's from just really taking calculated risks, just being
Mm.
smart with the money, with my money, like whether it's outsourcing or paying for sponsored posts or affiliates or co-branded collaborations or wherever the money is going, just really making sure it's a calculated risk.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I love that. And yeah, I'm a big fan of a spreadsheet personally. So and so that's how you've grown it effectively then, doubled it every year,
Yeah,
and without so bootstrapped effectively.
totally. Yep, completely
And
bootstrapped.
by paying attention to where the money's going, taking those risks, outsourcing when you hit pinch points, when you as the founder are at the point where you can't do any more, and then
Exactly.
really honing in on what I always say that I feel like all of retail can be summed up as do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
That's so true. It's so true. Yep.
And it sounds so obvious when you say it like that, but it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like you're going through it and saying, right, what worked, what's and I'm sure that there are things that are calculated risks that don't pan out, but it sounds like a lot of them do.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a share of nightmares too, of people that'll, get content approved and then they'll post something different, or I'll pay them and they will never post. They'll just run with the money. Like, I've had, shares of, like, fair shares of nightmares too. But yeah, I mean, I would say just like overall, that's definitely been like those calculated risks have gotten the business to where it is for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with and what's next? What's the plan for 2024?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I don't know. I mean, I love these co-branded collaborations. Like, they're so much fun. It's so great to have someone that I really admire, partner with the brand. So, looking forward to something like that in 2024. Also making some new products, expanding the line a little bit. I think those are my biggest things. And, like you said, about just doing more of what works and less of what doesn't. I think in the back of my mind, and I watch Shark Tank all the time, and people come in and the sharks say, What do you want from a shark?" And they say, "I want to get in retail." And everyone goes, "Oh, retail, like, why do you want to do that?" And it's like, in the back of my mind, I've always wanted that too. Like, I would love to be on, in those big stores at the big,
Mm.
giant stores, and then I think to myself, like, maybe I don't. Like, maybe what I'm doing now is working. Like, maybe I need to do more of what's working and less of what's not. So, I think about that all the time too, especially when, like, I have that mindset of like reach for the stars, and I think about that kind of stuff, and maybe that's not the best path. So, I really love how you said that.
Well, and thank you so much. And do let me know, do tell us where we can find out more about you.
Yes, www.getintothelimelight.com. And we're also on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, Get Into the Limelight.
Thanks so much for tuning in. It was a fabulous episode, jam packed full of some great insights there into influencer marketing. Want to head over and say hi on Instagram at Resilient Retail Club and let me know what you took away from the session today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast or follow it in either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, it makes a huge difference. You can rate and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, or you can also rate it inside the app on Spotify. Until next week, see you then.